I think we can go ahead with that.
Justice Committee, October 19th, 2020.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call this special meeting of the Justice Committee to order. We have 5 members present. We have a quorum. There are no minutes to approve. Ms. Rodriguez, do we have any members of the public who requested to appear?
Chairman Gordon, we do not.
In that case, we will move immediately to item 4 on the agenda, departmental matters. And Ms. Rodriguez, I'll give you the floor first to introduce the first of the budget items to come before the committee.
Thank you, Chairman Gordon. I will go ahead and read the first action item, although I will say I'll forecast a bit before I get official. The sheriff is with us and he will be presenting on these items. If it pleases the committee, we can either, Chairman Gordon, separate 4A1A from 4AB, which also has subsets, or we can try all together to reduce the number of roll call votes, since those 3 are all for the sheriff to present. At your pleasure, Chairman.
If the committee has no objection, I'm fine with combining them and proceeding in that way.
Okay, I will go ahead for the record then and read these. So I would like to bring items to be presented for action this evening. Item 4A1A, request approval of fiscal year 2021 recommended budget for the General Fund 001, Merit Board Department 008, Administrative Services Program 0010, as well as under B, request approval of fiscal year 2021 recommended budget for the Sheriff's Department 0029, including B1, the General Fund 001, Law Enforcement Operation Program 0027, Criminal Investigations Program 0028, Administrative Services Program 0029, Jail Operations Program 0031, Fleet Management Program 0033, and EMA Operations Program 0052. And finally, under B2, Court Security Fund 0141, Court Security Program 0035. And the membership, you will find all of this on pages 3 through 22 of your packet.
Thank you very much for that. I'm going to suggest that we have a motion in support of all of those items just presented, moved by Member Martin, seconded by Member Soldner. And then I will suggest also that we discuss each item individually and then group them for a vote at the tail end. Is that acceptable to members of the committee? Okay, thank you very much. And Sheriff Sandage, welcome to you, sir, this afternoon.
Thank you, George. Craig, do we have my PowerPoint presentation, please?
It's Joseph tonight. Craig's out, but yes, we do have it.
If we go ahead and put that up. What I did, since my budget is so time-consuming and large, I just highlighted the major increases in our budget. As Administrator Rodriguez just said, we've got several different departments within the Sheriff's Department budget. Department 27 being Law Enforcement Operations, Department 28 Criminal Investigations, 29 Administrative, Jail Operations 31, Department 33 of Fleet, 35 Court Security, and 52 Emergency Management. Under Department 27 Law Enforcement Operations, next slide please. There is a 86% increase that you'll notice. This is due to the no longer getting reimbursed as we should from the Illinois Law Enforcement Training Standards Board for sending our deputies to the academy. It used to be a direct reimbursement bill that we did not have to pay. Now we are paying that. So that's what accounts for that increase in that budget line. Are there any questions on that? Yes, Ms. Schaefer.
Yeah, I know what you said that the state wasn't paying for it, and I know that there's a lot of other counties are complaining about the same issue, and it was we talked about it at a Justice Committee meeting. So is this going to be the number you need for the entire year, or is this just for right now to see what happens with the state?
This is what we're projecting for the year. Could be higher, could be lower. So there is a chance. We did just get a bit of reimbursement from the state, but that was because there was money left available from the Training Standards Board that the local mobile training units did not need. So they dispersed that statewide to different agencies to pay a portion of training. It did not pick up the whole cost that we had, but it was a partial reimbursement. Any further?
Want to be sure that I understand where we are, Sheriff Sandage. You were in the, I'm sorry.
We are Department 27.
Right, okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Thank you. I didn't have any questions. I just wanted to be sure I was on the same page with you, literally.
It gets confusing, George, believe me. Next slide, please. You'll see in Department 29 on the next slide, which is admin, we had a 22% increase in microfilming services. The next slide states that the increase is necessary to keep up with our retention and microfilming schedule of police records. So that increase is so we can keep up with our retention schedule. And is there any questions there? Next slide, 770-0001, 27% increase for mobile team 8. As the next slide will show, that cost is for 54 deputies. The cost has went from $75 a deputy a year for training to $95 for a year. Are there any questions there? Martin?
Is this across all the MTUs? Did it go up for all of them, or is this just for ours?
I cannot speak to the rest of them. This is for MTU 8 that serves our county. I'm not sure about the others.
All right, just curious.
Next slide, please. So in section 841-001, we are looking to purchase body cameras for the sheriff's office. Bloomington and Normal have already gone to a body camera program. We sat back and honestly let them do the research on the body cameras and see which work best. After looking at the products, we think Axon will be our best option. What I have ready for you now is a short video from a department that also has Axon, and it'll kind of give you some of the features of our the body cameras we're looking to purchase. If we can play that video, please.
We're working on it, Sheriff, from this end.
Today, I'm pleased to announce that body-worn cameras are now being deployed and distributed here at the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. We have heard those nationwide calls for change, and I'm confident that these body-worn cameras will further our commitment at the Sheriff's Office of building that trust through transparency. We have great deputies doing great work under tremendously stressful situations, and this technology is going to document these interactions.
Some of the highlights of the body cams we're looking at, they have a sensor on them that anytime an officer were to draw their weapon, it will automatically kick on the body camera, as well as any body cameras that are within Bluetooth range of that officer. Also, if the officer is in their squad car and activates the lights in the squad car, it will also activate the body camera. We feel that these will suit our needs, and eventually we would like to get a program started for the corrections side too. But we want to definitely get it out on the street for our deputies in this year's budget. Next slide, please. So the upfront cost on this for year one, we have been quoted is $106,544. That covers not only the body cameras, but the chargers. It covers redaction software. If videos are FOIA'd or needed for court cases, this program will redact things that aren't meant to be seen by outside agencies. Then starting in year 2 through year 5, there's a $45,581 dollar charge. This covers mainly storage and the warranty. As you can see, the storage of all the video is the largest cost for the body camera program. This will be stored in the cloud. It also includes an evidence component where videos can be placed right into evidence through the body camera. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on that. Mr. Soldner.
Yes, I'm sorry. What did you say the number was? How many of these are you getting?
This would be for 54 body cameras.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes. And if there's no other questions, we'll go to the next slide. Department 31, jail operations. In 620,001, there is a 10% increase in operating supplies, and that is for personal protective equipment due to COVID. In 621,001, non-major equipment, there is a cost for increase for the replacement of laser cartridges that need replaced every once in a while, and also replacement keys for some of the jail locks. In 718,003, much like on the patrol side, you'll see the large increase for PTI training. That is the cost of sending 10 officers through the Corrections Academy. That's on the next slide there. At $3,500 a piece, and that is what we project we will be sending in the next year due to retirements and other openings. And next slide, please. 61% increase in equipment, 744,001. That is, we have gone through the jail where we used to have Scott air packs hanging throughout that required a lot of maintenance. We have switched to escape hoods in the need if needed for an emergency. And the only drawback with the escape hoods is they have an expiration date on them. So we try to get those replaced as we should. And as the next slide shows, those are, we project we'll have to replace 5 of them next year at a cost of $189 a piece. Next slide, please. Department 33 fleet. 620,001 operating supplies. You'll see 120% increase. As the next slide will show you, that is for an update for our automotive diagnostic reader. Every few years we need to update the software that can read the trouble codes that we may get on our vehicles. And that's exactly what this does. 621,001. Non-major equipment, 224% increase. The next slide will show you the problem we have every 4 or 5 years due to design changes in squad cars. Sometimes the cages and canine inserts that we use, if we're lucky, we can get transfer kits that will adapt them to fit. However, unfortunately, with the new design, some of our cages will no longer fit, and we will have to purchase new cages for those squad cars. So that's what that cost entails there. Are there any questions on that? That is all the major increases that I pointed out. I'd like to thank the administrator's office for their work with me on the budget. There was a lot of give and take, and budget together, and that also suited our needs. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions for Sheriff Sandage from members of the committee? Member Schaefer.
I'm going on to EMA, if that's okay, unless you don't want me to go that far.
No, that's fine.
Okay. I just kind of curious as to any reimbursements that we'd get for COVID. Would that fall in this for revenue? And if we know of anything that they're going to do, or any expenses that we know we might have for that? That's my first question.
Those come in daily. Camille, did you have something to add on that?
Certainly, I didn't come prepared to talk about that specifically, Member Schaefer, because it's our expectation at this point that the majority of those revenues, if you'd call it that, but mostly expenses and reimbursements. I don't like to call reimbursements revenues, even though the accountants might like to do that. Most of that will fall during 2020. I know that between the EMA office and the sheriff and I, as well as administration, we're constantly on a daily basis accepting those receipts and tracking them, and either putting them into the CARES bucket or the CURES bucket, depending on which one we can utilize most appropriately. But the sheriff and I do communicate about that probably weekly, as well as with EMA. So we can certainly provide the membership with some kind of update if Assistant County Administrator Dreyer and the sheriff feel comfortable to do that. Perhaps at the next Justice Committee meeting, we could do that for the 2020 status.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then my other question is on court security. And it looks like you're spending a lot more on employees. Is it just because there's more need or there's more courtrooms, or can you explain that a little bit, please?
What we have done in court security is, whereas before the screening officers fell under facilities management, we have taken oversight of them, and we've also upgraded their uniform and the equipment that they have.
Thank you for reminding me of that. Thank you.
Other questions for Sheriff Sandage at this time from members of the committee? Hearing none, are we ready to vote? If so, I'll ask Julie to do the roll call, and the chair will vote.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Member Went,
Yes.
Member Schaefer,
Yes.
Member Martin, Member Martin.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Member Solder,
Vote yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Chairman Gordon.
Yes.
Passes.
Thank you, Sheriff.
All right, thank you.
Right. I'll turn this back to Administrator Rodriguez for the next action item.
Thank you, Chairman Gordon. I move on to an item to present for action under 4AC, which is request approval of fiscal year 2021 recommended budget for the Metro Mclean County Centralized Communication Center Fund 0452, Metro Communication Center Department 0030, and Metro Communication Program 0090, found on pages 23 through 30 of your packet.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion. Member Schaefer has moved it. Member Martin has seconded it. Welcome, Mr. Cannon. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Good. Are there items that you would first care to call to our attention before we move to, well, that's a good way to do it. Go ahead.
This committee is well versed in Metcom, I know, but I did put together a PowerPoint to kind of go over the budget. There really isn't a lot of major increases, fortunately. And being so, I decided I'd just kind of go through each line item as quickly as possible, just kind of to refresh everybody's memory on exactly what we're doing with our budget. So, and I just did a little brief history as a refresher at the beginning as well. I think everybody knows that we're commonly referred to Metcom. We were created in 1996 as part of that intergovernmental agreement between the town, the city, the ETSB, and the county. If you recall, the city of Bloomington chose to do it all on their own in 2006 and pulled out. We do dispatch for all police, fire, and EMS within the McLean County, with the exception of the city of Bloomington. That also includes Illinois State University's police department for their 911 emergency calls only. We are currently staffed at 24 dispatchers. We have an office associate, 3 line supervisors, 2 assistant directors, and myself. And if you'll recall, the dispatchers are part of the collective bargaining unit. And the intergovernmental agreement did call for an oversight board that we call the Metcom Operational Board. And those are the members there. We have the county administrator, the normal city manager, the normal police chief, the sheriff, a representative of the Fire Mavis Division 41, a representative of the rural municipal police departments, and we have a representative from EMS. And just as a point of interest, that Metcom board did meet earlier this month, and they did make their approval of this budget prior to our meeting today as well. For our revenue sources, each of the 3 entities, the town, the county, and ETSB, What I do is I create the budget, I determine what our expenses are going to be, and then we equally divide that to determine what our revenue shares are going to be for those three entities. The other portion of our revenue for the budget is our Starcom airtime fees. As you recall, Metcom does pay all of those fees for all of the users, and then we turn around and charge each agency $150 per radio per year to be on the system. That doesn't cover the entire thing. Metcom takes a pretty good chunk of that, but this does recoup some of the charges for us. These are our line items for a revenue this year. I didn't mention interest as part of as our revenue because it's usually pretty minimal, and we really don't count on that a whole lot. But the big thing to point out this year is our revenues are down 0.9%. Typically, that would be a bad thing, but in Metcom's case, that means that our expenses are down 0.9%, and the user agencies are getting the same service and not having to pay quite as much. As you can see, the three main entities are down 1.2% for 2021 as far as my projections go. This part here is the expenses for personnel. This is one of the areas that always goes up every year. I think with every entity, that's going to be the case. We've got contractual obligations. We've got merit increases across the boards. It's going up 5.2% this year. And then the fringe benefits, they're going to increase by 3.2%. Which makes our total fringe and personnel costs increase by 4.7%. Here's where we go into the breakdown of each line item. The first one is our clothing for employees. This is, we have a contractual obligation to reimburse dispatchers for some Metcom apparel. And then we also provide shirts to the administrative staff. Our next line item for the gasoline and the oil and the fuel, we use that to fuel our three vehicles and our generators that are located at Metcom, the Lexington Tower site, and the Aerosmith Tower site. Our next line item is our books, videos, and publications. The main cost for that is going to be, we purchase city directories for the use of the dispatchers and our ETSB employee for address purposes. We have training manuals and training videos. This line item did increase. It's one of the ones that did have a substantial increase as far as percentage goes. And the reason for that is we do need some additional training materials in 2021. The next line item is our education materials. That line item is down 28.5%. We use this line item to purchase our promotional items that we distribute at the schools, public events, fairs, things of that nature. Gives information about how to use 911, when to use 911. This line item is down. This year, we had quite a bit purchased in 2020. Unfortunately, we weren't able to utilize it very much because of our events were canceled or postponed because of the pandemic. Next line item is office supplies. That's just your typical miscellaneous office supplies and paper. I was able to reduce that to requested 4%. Operational supplies, that's down 30.5%. We've got several items that we're looking to purchase for this, even with it being down this year. We need to replace our conference room recording. That's for when we hold our Metcom and ETSB meetings. We always will budget for replacement headsets for telecommunicators and monitors for those systems on the floor. This year, we want to add for next year, I should say, we want to add a public education table and tent for our promotional events. And then we also are needing to add some networking materials, some patch panels and some cables, as well as replace the supervisor's chairs and purchase a digital camera. We just had some higher ticket items that we have budgeted in this line item for 2020. So that's why we're able to reduce this overall. The last line item is the computers under $1,000. This is just, we need buy computer standby replacement for emergencies. And I was able to reduce this line item by the requested 4%. Next line item is our employee service awards. This is where we purchase our awards for National Telecommunicator Week and end of year rewards for the telecommunicators. Really couldn't make a reduction in that line item as it pretty much stays the same every year. Next line item is cleaning supplies. That is going up. It's 50%, but it's really just $250. But that's the materials we use to sanitize the workspace. As you know, it's a 24/7 work environment, and we share those areas often, and especially with today's times, we really need to be a little bit more thorough with that. Next line item is our copy machine expenses. That's just your typical toner, additional images, repair and maintenance. Was able to reduce that to the requested 4%. Next line item is the letterhead and printed forms, and that's down 4.1%. And that's just as it says, it's our letterhead, our envelopes, and our trouble forms that we provide to our agencies to fill out in case they want to make any complaints against us. Knock on wood, we're not using those very often, so let's hope we can keep that good streak going. Last line item is our postage on this slide. We were able to make the reduction of 4% on that. That's just our, your usual postage and shipping. What we're looking at first on this slide is our advertising and legal notice. We were, unfortunately, that increase is 70%, but in dollar figures, it's less than $500. We use this to post for our new hires for dispatchers. And the reason why it's going to be a little bit more in 2021 is we want to post to APCO and NENA, try to garner some more qualified applicants when we do have those open positions. APCO is the Association of Public Safety Communications Officials, and NENA is the National Emergency Number Association. Next line item is contract services. This is our language line. We utilize this service when we get somebody on the phone that does not speak English. We're able to utilize language line in order to assist us communicate with those folks. Dues and membership is going up 14.6%. These are our memberships to APCO, NENA, MABUS, Mobile Team, our Illinois GIS, and these organizations provide training opportunities for us. Gives us discount on training and other services. The reason there's an increase in this year or for 2021 is that there was some increases from those organizations. And I will admit that I did make an error in budgeting in 2020. So I just need to recoup that for 2021. Schooling and conferences is up 6.8%. This is really where we have all of the training for the dispatchers. We have some conferences that we would like to be able to send some employees to, but this covers our recertifications for EMD and EFD, CPR. And on the slide here, it lists the conferences and the number of employees that we would like to send to each one of these. As you're well aware, a conference does provide an opportunity to expand the employees' knowledge with training, offers them the opportunity to network with their peers. And it's really important at this time to really get our junior leadership, our supervisors, the assistant directors, some additional training. I'm getting a little long in the tooth, so one of these days somebody's going to have to make that replacement. I did give you a list here of all of those names of those agencies that we're going to be sending people to conference and what the training is, in case you had any questions about those. Insurance line item is down just slightly. That's just your typical liabilities, workers' comp, and car insurance. Investigation line item, that there's no change in that. This is the line item that we utilize to provide polygraphs for the new hire for dispatchers. Unable to make any changes to that line with open positions and any hiring we need to do for that. The last line item on this slide is for vehicle maintenance. It's up slightly at 14.3%. We have 3 vehicles. They're all getting a little bit older. The repairs are becoming a little bit more frequent. So my expectation is the cost to make those repairs are going to go up slightly. Next line item, we start getting into the bigger ticket items here. And the first one is the radio and communications equipment maintenance line items. This is slightly up at 5.1%. This is where we pay for our Starcom airtime, our console maintenance for the Starcom radio equipment, miscellaneous radio repairs, our Motorola PMDC maintenance. That's the mobile data for the police units in the field. This is the line item that the T1 lines, the main circuits for our Motorola radio system. And then we have some tower maintenance out at the towers that we have as well. Really, the only reason for an increase in this line item is that we are moving more Starcom radios onto the system. If you recall or not, we're making an attempt to get all police, fire, and EMS on the Starcom system. And we've made major strides this year and more to come next year with rural fire and EMS. The next line item is the maintenance building and grounds. This is just our service and repairs for the generators that we have. I think I can go ahead and make that 4% decrease and still be okay there. Next line item is equipment contracts. This was budgeted improperly in 2020, so it's been moved to where it needs to be in 2021, so it's going to go away. We've got our computer parts repair services line item. It's down 4%. That's just going to be your miscellaneous computer repairs that may not be covered elsewhere in the budget. Software license agreement, that's down 51%. This is where we pay our yearly maintenance for our CAD software, our CAD hardware, our Aegis and Oracle licenses through IT. We've got our priority dispatch maintenance. That's our emergency medical dispatch, our emergency fire dispatch. Aqua means that's the software that we use to do quality assurance on the EMD and the EFD. And then we have card sets as well in case we have a computer malfunction and we need to do things without a computer as far as emergency dispatching. And then the last on that list is our from Biddle Consulting. That's the actual testing software that we utilize for new hires. We had some major purchases last year in 2020 that we made, so we were able to reduce this line item quite a bit. Next line item is the emergency medical expense line. No change here. This is where we do our hearing and health tests for new hires. Again, we can't make any change on this line item, not knowing what the future may hold there. Last item on this slide is our non-contractual services. This is for our Serban networking connections. This is where we pay McLean County's facilities for the work they do for us, and any events and any event permits and registrations that we might have through the year. We're able to reduce this line item for a couple of reasons. We had a lower estimated facilities payment for 2021. And as you'll see later in the presentation, I'm making a request to change how we handle our storage. We currently pay a monthly fee for offsite storage, and I will address that later in the presentation. Next line item on this slide here is administrative surcharge. That's just what we pay the county to make sure, they take care of all of our needs. I'm sure it's not really what they're worth, but fortunately, that's what we're able to give them. Next line item is equipment rental. That's just the rent for the copy machine and the postage meter. We have electric expense, next line item, and that's for our electrical usage at the Lexington and Aerosmith tower sites. I'm able to make that 4% reduction there without any trouble. Last line item here is for our telephone service. Drastic drop here. We're looking at an 87% decrease. I think you're well aware that one of my goals in 2020 was to eliminate Frontier as our telephone vendor, and we've made great strides in making that happen. In doing so, ETSB will incur most of those costs anyway, but there were a couple of line items that Metcom covered that are going to move over to the ETSB site, so Metcom does not have to cover it anymore. So all we're looking at on the telephone line item is our cell phones for our management staff, and we have pagers for the TCs for their on-call, and that's contractual. Last couple here, we've got lease and purchase capital improvements here at $41,355. We made no request in 2020, but what I'm requesting for 2021 is a couple of things. One is what we call site hardening. We want to install steel rollers that are electrically operated that will cover our doors and windows. Due to the recent civic unrest and concerns for staff who felt very vulnerable, I'm recommending adding these shutters to make them feel a little bit more safe at Metcom. Unlike other dispatch centers, we do not have any armed police officers in the building with them to help them feel a little bit more safe. So we think this would do the job. It would also help us during any violent weather systems that we might have. The other major ticket item here is we're looking to put in an outbuilding for our storage there on site that would replace two buildings that we have on property that are essentially falling apart. We do have lawn maintenance equipment in one of those buildings and other miscellaneous Metcom items in the other one. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we do pay offsite storage for all of our documents that we're required to keep. This is just kind of an example of what that steel shutter would look like on a window. We would be able to roll that down electronically. If we had a power failure, that we can't cover with our generator, we'd be able to hand crank that down. These are pictures of those two glorious sheds that we have on property now. Shows you a little bit of the damage that they are to them. They're just basically falling apart. They've been there since 1997. And this is what we're looking to replace it. This is an artist's rendition of what you would like to replace them with, both indoor and what it would look like inside with the shelving units. The last thing on this slide is the purchase of radio equipment. This is a big increase, but we are needing to replace some aging and malfunctioning radios, both at Metcom and at the tower sites. This would cost us $48,000 this year, or in 2021, to get that done. It would replace some station alerting and rural paging radios at Metcom site, and the equivalent out at the tower sites as well. And here's the summary for all of the different areas. As I mentioned earlier, the entire budget is down 0.9%, which I think is pretty good. I don't know that I've presented one that's been less than the year before. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer it. I know that's quite a bit of information, maybe more than you even wanted to hear, but I just thought it would be a good refresher to show you how we're spending the money.
Are there questions for Mr. Cannon from members of the committee? Any at all? Besides the one or two that I will add if nobody else has any. Okay, Mr. Cannon, there was one item, it's line item 0599.0007, the Laborers International Pension Contribution. I don't think I'm understanding what the I'm not understanding why there was an amount paid for the pension in 2020 and nothing requested for 21. I did notice that in 2020, there wasn't any dollar amount included in either the adopted or the amended budget, we spent 31,000 plus back in 2019. So I'm looking for clarification on this, that's all.
Sure. That is not money that comes from the county. That is part of the union's retirement plan that actually comes from their salary that's accounted for in the full-time employee salary line item. The line item was created in the budget for housekeeping purposes here, for them to track how they're giving the money back to LIUNA. But it's no money that comes from the county. It comes strictly from the employees' salaries. So we don't budget for it.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it. And there's a very small amount in budget line 0624.0001. This is I almost feel like I'm nitpicking, but on the cleaning supplies, I'm wondering if, in fact, given the amount spent thus far in 2020, is there a rationale for perhaps raising the amount that you're requesting?
Yeah, I guess
500 this year, and you spent almost twice that, and both your final number and the county administrator's final number go up to 750. I just want to be sure that's going to be adequate.
I feel that it will be. We really stocked up this year when we could, because we weren't certain what was going to happen. And I think we will be able to utilize the amount that we need to cover us for next year. And unless something surprises me, I guess.
Okay, and there are emergency appropriations possible for that eventuality. We hope that you're absolutely right, and maybe the amount is coming in a couple of bucks high, and that'll be good. That'll be good. Okay, those were the only items that I had. Are there any last minute things that other committee members wish to pose to Mr. Cannon? Hearing none, are we ready to vote? The chair will vote. Ms. Morlock, will you do the honors?
Member Wendt,
Yes.
Member Schaefer,
Yes.
Member Martin,
Yes.
Member Soldner,
Yes.
Chairman Gordon.
Yes. Mr. Cannon, thank you for the information you provided. Appreciate it.
I thank the committee as well.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Thank you, Chairman. If it pleases the committee, once again, I will humbly request that under items for action 4A, D, and E be read together with all of the subparts under E, and then discussion ensue following, since this is all technically from one department. Would that be okay, Chairman?
It's fine with me, if it is fine with members of the committee.
I will just proceed. So I will go ahead and say under item 4A, D, I do request approval of fiscal year 2021 recommended budget for the General Fund 001, Jury Commission, Department 0018, Juror Selection and Admin Program 0017. And then under E, I do request approval of fiscal year 2021 recommended budget for the Circuit Court Department 0016, including E1, General Fund 001, Circuit Court Administration Program 0016, and E2, Neutral Site Custody Exchange Fund 0170, Neutral Site Custody Exchange Program 0106, and under E3, the Children's Waiting Room Fund 0171, Children's Waiting Room Program 0105, and under E4, Law Library Fund 0506 and Law Library Program 0015. And for the membership, these are found on pages 31 through 39 of your packet.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve those recommended budget items? Moved by Member Martin. Is there a second? Seconded by Member Soldner. Once again, I will recommend to the committee that we take up each item individually and then at the end do a collective single vote on the items on pages 31 through 39.
And Chairman, I do have Mr. Scanlon, as well as, if I may, Judge Rebecca Foley here in the room, and I will again move away from this spot and they will present. Thank you.
That'll be fine. I invite them to take that seat or stand, alternate or both. We will start with the jury commission on pages 31 and 32.
Well, I'll briefly go through our PowerPoint presentation, which will cover all the various budgets and fund requests. But first, a preliminary remark, and I believe it was probably covered thoroughly by Don Everhart in his presentation. We had hoped to work with the county and have a very substantial review of the revenue projections for the circuit clerk and the court operations funds, the document storage fund, and the court automation fee fund for the committee, because the state of Illinois passed a statute called the Criminal and Traffic Assessment Act that had been in effect, and that we were going to have 6 months, and at this point 9 months of good data. But because of the pandemic, beginning on March 17th, we had a significant reduction in operations. We continued thousands of cases in April and May and June. And so that completely altered the financial projections that we had and the ability to project what we were going to see in revenue and expenses in those funds. And so I believe Mr. Everhart covered that, but I would say we are still not in a position where we're at full operations for the court, in that we are not seeing all the parties return to the courthouse, and we are still working at reducing the number of people who appear. So that's impacting our ability to have solid projections of at least revenues. The expenditures, I think, are pretty well set. You can go to the first real slide. I just want to give the committee a reminder, the court system is established under Article 6 of the state constitution. This is the version of the 1970 Constitution that is invested in 3 levels of court system. The Supreme Court governs all court operations in the state of Illinois, and the circuit courts are supervised by a chief judge, but there's also presiding judges in divisions that have administrative authority, and of course judges have individual authority, both constitutional and statutory. But for the county's perspective, we are dependent, the court system is dependent for the facility and funding for the staffing, of which we're thankful that McLean County has been so responsive for as long as I've been here for our needs. And we hope to continue a positive relationship with the current administration. The law library is set forth under the county code, and anywhere within the county seat, law library can be in any public building, library, as long as it's in the county seat of government. Ours, of course, is located within the Law and Justice Center in room 665. And the statute sets forth that there also may be a fee established, and we are charging we're charging a $20 fee, which is not a maximum fee. It was the maximum fee, but it's increased by $1. You can go to the next slide. This slide will give you a little better operation. Chief Judge Mark Fellheimer is the current chief judge, but he supervises 5 counties, 21 judges, and he has authority to make full assignments of those judges. And I work for him. There's a number of staff who are state paid who work for him, court reporters, the administrative assistant, court reporter supervisor, and the arbitration administrator work for him. The 9 staff that are paid by the county all work for either the chief judge or the circuit associate judges who are assigned to McLean County. There are 13 judges assigned to McLean County currently. There's a 14th judge who is assigned on a very part-time basis, but 13 full-time judges assisted by those 9 staff. And move on. Our priorities for the court in next year, really, we've been working long-term with the other justice agencies in the county. That includes the sheriff's office, the public defender, the state's attorney, the circuit clerk, the staff of the jail, court services or probation, in establishing a new case management system, a new justice information system, which encompasses case management, the records management, which is the law enforcement side, a new jail management system, and then a process and a integration system for those individual systems. This system will be integrated, not integrated in the fashion which the current system is, which is one software system for every department and every function, but integrated in that data will flow without additional assistance from the jail into the state's attorney's office, into the circuit clerk's office, through the court and into court services, without it having to be re-entered. And we have been working on this for quite some time, most of 2020. I expect we'll be working on it throughout the entirety of calendar year 2021, with possibly seeing implementation of some of these systems in 2022 with luck, as long as we can find an affordable solution for the county. The second thing we're looking at as a priority is expanding the e-filing efforts in conjunction with a new CMS system, which is a case management system. E-filing came to the state of Illinois in 2017. It started in the civil and family arena. We're going to criminal e-filing this fall around Thanksgiving. Don Everhart's working extensively with his staff, state's attorney's office, the public defender's office, our staff, court services to begin the e-filing in the criminal division. We should have that up and operational within a couple months. And then the entirety of almost all cases will be electronic, and we will begin moving forward in a new arena. And then those two efforts, the new justice information system, the new e-filing, and our pivot to a virtual court system in various courtrooms due to the pandemic, are going to move us toward reorganization of the court, where we can have more people appear virtually. We can do things more electronically. We can walk away from having physical files available to judges and move toward an electronic file. We're not there except on a very limited basis for certain judges, but we hope in 2021 we'll be able to see where that future is and move toward it, be able to embrace a reorganization that will come in conjunction with a new case management system and help the county save money. But with that, I can go to the jury commission. As you talked, it's organized under 705 ILCS 310. Its primary purpose is to identify, summons, qualify both the grand jury and petit jury We have 6 grand jury panels impaneled a year. They run 2 calendar months each. They start on January 1, March 1, and so on. There are between 16 and 18, or I'm sorry, 12 and 16 persons on a grand jury. They stay together. They're run through the state's attorney's office. If anyone's ever served on a grand jury, it really is almost every Wednesday for those 2 months for about 3 or 4 hours, sometimes longer, depending on the number of cases. And then they're done with their term of service. Their only job is to determine whether or not there's sufficient information to have a true bill, what's called a true bill of indictment, and have someone who is facing charges have a formalization of those charges through the grand jury process. The other half of the equation is the more labor-intensive half, and that is what's called the petit jury system, or most people just refer to it as the jury system. And that's what you are mostly familiar with. Persons are called in for a 1-week term. We call in about 250 people a week. We have traffic cases, civil cases, criminal cases. Since the pandemic, we have been reduced down to only 2 operational jury spaces. I say spaces because one is a courtroom, one is the actual jury assembly room. And we can run two trials simultaneously. We have been doing that for the last 5 months. April, we did not have any jurors appear at all. We reestablished jury service on May 1, and we've had jurors since coming into the building since June 1. And we expect in 2021, we'll be able to expand to 3 weeks of jury service and 3 courtrooms. So we can have 3 jury cases go simultaneously for 3 weeks at a time. And so we will summons about 4,500 people in 2021. So I'm not going to go through the budget line by line, because the budget for the jury commission is actually, the actual jurors are in the circuit court budget, juror expenses are in the circuit court budget, all the personnel and the paper and copying and printing expenses are in the jury commission budget. But we'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the jury commission.
Any questions for Mr. Scanlon at this time? Hearing none. Please go ahead then.
Okay, I'll move on to the McLean County Law Library. The Law Library, as previously stated, is established through the county. Its real focus anymore is not to be a physical volume law library, but to be a resource for those persons who need access to information, forms, and e-filing. It, in conjunction with the Bloomington Public Library and the Normal Public Library, is really the community resource and the access for persons who don't have a computer, who don't have a printer, and need to have access to the court system. That's small claims, that's evictions. Those are persons who are facing foreclosure, persons who wish to be divorced, or facing orders of protection. We run an online research resource and an e-filing resource. It is staffed through volunteers. There is a program in Illinois that is funded through the Illinois Bar Association, or Bar Foundation, that provides us staffing. We have both paid and unpaid staff, volunteers, who provide training and resources for persons come in. They're there about 32 hours a week to serve the public. And it's all housed in a room that is smaller than this conference room. But we have hundreds of people who go through there on a monthly basis to provide them information, forms, and e-filing services. Printing is free to the public. That is our big goal, is to provide people an opportunity to print. There are a number of persons who come into the court system who don't have a computer, and they certainly don't have access to a printer. Printing is very limited at the public libraries, so that is what the service we can provide them. You file something, it doesn't have to just exist electronically. Where you don't have access to it because you don't have a computer, we have free printing and we have free access to our computers. Again, about 80% of the expenses in the law library are covered through the law library fee that we collect. The other 20% is through the general fund. About 80% of the expenses in the law library are personnel. And then we have the online legal resources and the printing costs. And I'll answer any other questions people have about the law library.
Any questions regarding the law library for Mr. Scanlon? I did have two questions, if no one else does.
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon, I was interested to see something. Well, one question is on the revenue side and one is on the expenses side. The expenses side is budget line 50503.0001. The raw dollar total is not a significant, it's not a huge total. I was just curious what explains the 12% increase in employee salaries.
We are utilizing, when we originally classified this employee, they literally sat in the law library and waited for, this was in 2002. They literally sat in the law library and waited for books to be delivered, and they were just shelving books and appointing people to the books that were on the shelves back when we had rows and rows of books. We have moved that staff to doing much more work that is much more aligned with the work that the circuit court secretaries do. She is interchangeable now with any one of those staff or virtually any one of those staff on the circuit court secretary. So we asked the county for reclassification of that position to the same level as the circuit court secretaries. And as I understand, that was agreed to by the county in their FTE recommendation. And that accounts for the 12% increase.
Thank you for that. On the revenue side, the law library fees appeared, as far as what was included in the budget amounts. This is budget line 0410.0023. In 2019, the amount was very similar to what has been agreed to by what is being put forward by both you and Administrator Rodriguez. But in 2020, the amount was different. Is that an alternating year kind of phenomenon or what?
No, we were, because of the CTAA, the Criminal and Traffic Assessment Act, we were very unsure about how much revenue we were going to see in 2020 as it was brand new. I think we're a little more comfortable with what we're going to see as revenue.
Very good. All you had to do was say CTAA, and I was ready to go. Okay.
I don't want to use 1,000 acronyms for the committee.
No, we're familiar with that one, believe me.
I completely.
Yeah. Are there any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Scanlon, very much. Are there other questions for Mr. Scanlon from members of the committee? All right. I believe that concludes what you were going to present to us. Am I right about that?
Correct. I can just, Judge Foley and I are happy to answer the questions about the other programs, including the entirety of the circuit court budget.
Very good. Any questions from members of the committee for either Mr. Scanlon or for Judge Foley? I gather not. If that's the case, I'm going to assume that we are ready to vote. Is that correct? All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Scanlon, and thank you, Judge Foley, both for being here and standing ready to answer questions in one case and answering them in the other. Appreciate all the information that has been presented to us. The chair will vote. Ms. Morlock, would you call the roll?
Member Went,
Yes.
Member Schaefer,
Yes.
Member Martin,
Yes.
Member Solner,
Yes.
Chairman Gordon.
Yes.
Passes.
Thank you both again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're now moving to the budget proposed coming from the county coroner's office. Ms. Rodriguez, would you take the lead here?
Thank you, Chairman Gordon. Under item 4AF, I do request approval of fiscal year 2021 recommended budget for the general fund 0001, coroner department 0031, investigations and inquests program 0038, found on pages 40 through 45 of your packet.
Thank you. Moved by Member Schaefer, seconded by Member Went. Ms. Yoder, I believe you are virtually and only a little more remotely present.
Yes, so I'm in my office, but I don't have cameras in my office. So I did a PowerPoint what?
All I said was good afternoon. Please proceed.
Oh, good afternoon. So I did a PowerPoint presentation and realized it was only 4 slides because theoretically, Camille, she wanted everyone to cut their budget by 4%. I did most of that except for a few line items. So instead of being long and redundant, I didn't do a long PowerPoint. So if you look at the revenue, the first line item, the 0.008 for the copy fees, that's for any FOIA requests or documents requested. That line item is governed per state statute on coroner's fees, but I do want you to know that every family gets a free copy of the autopsy report. And the autopsy reports theoretically are expensive because one has to realize, though not long in page numbers, you have to be a board certified forensic pathologist to write that surgical exam out. And that's why there's a cost to that, but every family gets a free one. When you look at the autopsy storage fees, which is the next line item, many of the other coroners in this area, since we're the hub and we do 40 counties autopsies, they're getting their own coolers to keep their bodies, and some of the local funeral homes. So revenue, that's why we decreased that line item, because we won't make it. Death surcharge grant, that is actually a grant from the state for the cremation permits, and so that fluctuates depending on where the state is with their budget. Reimbursement for services, we get reimbursed out of our investigation expense, which is a 700 line item, so 0724 investigation expense. So that's reimbursement for histology, toxicology, and other counties reimburse us for that. And then the morgue use fees. So this year, we've done over 250 more autopsies since 2019. That is because the Sangamon County lost their forensic pathologist, and he actually moved to Idaho. Rumor has it he may come back. We don't know. So that's why we left the line fee, because that will take 250 autopsies away from us. Each autopsy, we make a revenue of approximately $235, and it's more of a use for the autopsy, the equipment, if you will. So if you go on to the other line items, I think part of the initiative that you as board members wanted was for the elected official or for the department head to have a mental health initiative to keep in line with the McLean County Mental Health Initiative, and mine is continuous suicide awareness and prevention, the opioid epidemic awareness, disseminate that information, and continue with the behavioral health priority action team that Susan Schaefer's on with me. And we've started a subcommittee of Substance Use Disorder Coalition, but really that's gone into the behavioral health. Since we've done so many autopsies, and sadly many of our accidents, injuries, homicides occur on the weekends, we do have part-time use of staff that the increase, so I've asked for a 5,000 increase. Interestingly enough, last year or the year before, Administrator Watson had decreased by 5,000 when we were already over budget in the line, so technically we're doing a catch-up, if you will. Other than that, for the 500 line items, the 600 line items, except for the operating supplies, I've all decreased by 4%. The operating office supplies will need to keep at 25,000 rather than decrease by the 4,000 because that's still tight related to the cost of gloves. You know, I don't want to body bags. I mean, that sounds awful to say online, but that's one of the reasons we want to keep that. The line item for non-major equipment of 0621, that's on page 3 of your budget item. We want to purchase another cot for larger people that's safer for our staff. I would really like that to be moved to line item 0836.0001, and that's actually the purchase of medical equipment. And that was last year when all of you did the budget. That's where we placed another cot as well as x-ray discs. And so I'd like that to be moved actually to that and keep for non-major equipment the 3,648. If you have any questions, you can ask me about that as well. Microfilming, JDC, if any of you have been out to JDC, which is a vast, large area, is inundated with old files. We haven't been able to microfilm related to the cost. We did put 5,000 in there last year in anticipation that we were going to microfilm. We did have interns that were going to help us, but as we know, COVID came about. We didn't want interns here. They were students from Wesleyan and ISU, and so we let them go home to be safe, and so we weren't able to microfilm. So we're hoping that we're able to do that next year, if you will. Dues and membership have to stay the same. Schooling, even though we didn't utilize a lot of schooling this year, as you know, we had COVID. Therefore, we put a moratorium on not sending people out of the area, which is fine, but we do want to continue with our education. As you know, as you look at the 0724, the investigation expense, we did increase that. One reason we did increase that is it all appears as if I'm going over budget every year when we do the budget line item. And in fact, I don't go over, but it is reimbursed out of the line item of 0410 of the revenue line. But, you know, every month I get this as if I'm going over budget, to which I am not. Vehicle, I talked to Camille and Cassie. The Expedition needs to be replaced. We talked about that. It's one of our removal vehicles, and it's becoming not cost effective to keep that poor vehicle. It's old. It has over 100,000 miles on it. You know, I'm old school. We like to keep the old vehicles. You know, for instance, my husband will drive his truck until it's found in a ditch. But that's what happens when you grow up on a farm. Autopsies, I did keep up to 150,000. On average, we do about 140 autopsies on a 5-year average. I want to keep it at 150,000, and the one reason is the autopsy tech fee is going up $15 per autopsy. It hasn't been increased in 3 years, and I think he deserves it. Dr. Denton, our forensic pathologist, he wants to keep his fee stable for 2021, and then most likely will increase the year after that. So in a 5-year projection, please be aware of that. Dr. Denton does complete medical reviews rather than charging the taxpayers for a full autopsy. We do medical reviews that we obtain from medical records that we're able to summons from the hospitals. Let's say those are fall reviews. CTs have already been done, labs have already been evaluated, so there's no reason per se to do a full-on autopsy. But that comes at a cost to Dr. Denton at so he charges $25 per review, which if you look at Cook County, that's usually about $100 per review. So thank goodness Dr. Denton wants to keep it at $25 per review, because the average medical reviews that we do are $75 to $100 per year. Toxicology expense, you want to keep that the same because of the synthetic fentanyl increases. Also, the COVID testing did increase as well. If you look at in the 700 line item of indigent burial expense, it's the 0758. Statistically, we do about 1 theoretic indigent burial per year, and that's at a certain cost. But with COVID, most families were willing to donate their loved ones to science care. That is at no cost of any family member. It doesn't. And we have to pay for a death certificate, which is $17. That's why I increased the fee to $512. The interesting part of it is most families will donate their loved ones to science care, and they come back with the cremains. They do it all for free. It's wonderful for the families. The hard part is with COVID, they will not take someone, or if someone has a communicable disease, they will not take someone. Other than that, everything's fantastic, and I lowered my budget by 4% on most line items, and so I think I'm doing pretty well, and I stayed in budget so far this year. Any questions?
Member Martin, go ahead.
Well, first I wanted to comment that I absolutely agree with you, driving a vehicle until it doesn't go anymore and then you just get out and walk. But the question I have for you, have you given any consideration to purchasing a couple of PAPRs?
Oh, so the PAPRs we did want, and so that's a great question. So one thing with the coroner's office, when we do autopsies of patients that have COVID, or interestingly enough, someone that has ingested cyanide, so we need to use a PAPR, which is a respiratory you put over your head. You have an oxygen pack. Those are about $2,000. When COVID first started, lucky us, OSF, thank you, Randy, his team was able to give us a PAPR, as well as Illinois State University, to which we've utilized this whole time in the coroner's office for safety and for dissemination of the aerosolization, if you will, of COVID. We don't want that for Dr. Denton or his assistant, Stephen, because we don't want them ill. So that is a great idea, and that does come at a huge cost to us, and it's about $2,500. So that would be additional $5,000. So that's a great ask. Thanks, Randy.
Member Soldier?
Yes, just a comment on that last conversation. Is that something that could qualify as a COVID-related expense?
One would think, but when we're doing the IEMA expenses, I have found that it is absolutely difficult to get the things that we need. And in fact, when COVID first started, I did have a company that donated us 195 to the coroner's office because the health department was holding those for the nursing homes and the hospitals, which makes complete sense for their health care. But when my staff goes on scenes, they do need the N95s. So with IEMA, they gave us a lot of K-N95s, which aren't as good as the N95s. So it was really hard to get PAPRs. Those were going to the hospitals to be utilized because the anesthesiologists were intubating the patients, and they needed that for the live patients, which again, I completely understand, but we would be the last on the list for IEMA.
Member Schaefer, go ahead.
So are you asking us to increase a line item? Or is that already in here?
No, it's not in there. You could do the line item by $5,000 for the, it would be 0836.0001 for purchase of medical equipment. You could actually take the COT money out of the other line item that we previously discussed of the 0621, purchasing the COT, place it into line item of 0836.001, put in the COT as well as $5,000 for the PAPR. That would be an amazing thing, and I think Dr. Dutton would love that.
Well, I'm willing to do that. Do we have to make an amendment to do that? Or amend this? Or?
I believe procedurally that would be appropriate, yes.
Okay, I'd like to move that we increase that line item 8360001 by $5,000. And that's where you wanted the COT also moved? Kathy?
Yes. Yes, please, Susan. And so keep the other line item, the 0621, at $3,600 and I think $36. Don't quote me on that because it's not in front of me. But to keep it at that line item, which in fact would decrease the non-major equipment by 4%, going in with what Camille's recommendation is.
Okay.
Ms. Yoder, I'd like to be sure that I'm understanding the numbers here. Budget line 0621.001 stands at the moment in our budget document at $3,648.
Oh, sorry, I said $3,635. So keep it at 48. Again, I didn't have it in front of me.
Yeah, I understand. But if we're moving the COT to...
So that, yeah, that line item of the 3,648, although I can understand where you would see that that would be purchase of medical equipment where you would put it in there. The fact of the matter is that is for like chairs or maybe a desk or other things that break in our office. Those are non-medical equipment such as maybe Dr. Denton's saw that he utilizes or something like that, larger expenses that you don't see coming. And so we've always kept it at that for non-major equipment. The auditor likes certain things out of that line item.
What I'm asking is how much of that 3,648 is the COT request? And is that figure therefore going to be reduced?
No, the COT is actually $3,300 for the Furno COT. And I think when this budget was made, that the interns just thought, oh, it's $3,300. We'll just keep it there, forgetting to put it into the purchase line item of the 0836. If you look historically, I've always had a 0621 non-major equipment, and it's usually at $3,800. Does that make sense?
So you're asking to make the
I'm asking to keep the
36 to be 8,300.
No,
the COT and the hood.
Okay, so if you look at the 600 line items, non-major equipment 0621 on page 3, that has always been there perhaps for saws or for chairs or for other non-major equipment that we need in the office. Kind of a cush line item, if you will, which I'm willing to decrease by 4%. But when you look at big purchase items, anything over $1,000, where you need to get the auditor's approval and 3, when anything over $1,000, you want to get 3 quotes, right? And so that would be actually in the line item of 0836 because those are expensive line items. So you need 3 quotes because they're over $1,000. The 0621 is a line item that you can't buy anything that's over $1,000. Does that make sense?
So pardon me, how would those two budget lines read if we approve an amendment that has been moved, and I don't know if it's been seconded, and that's okay with me. I'm fine having the discussion because I want to know what we're going to be moving here.
So how about look at page 6 of my budget? Can everybody go to page 6?
Different page numbers.
Oh, it would be page 45 of your budget.
Right, and that's budget line 0836, correct?
Yes, and do you see the purchase medical dental equipment of the
Yes.
4,450? So
Right.
that was put in last year for a new cot and new x-ray disc that would go into our x-ray machine. That's what I'm asking you to put the 3,300 for the cot. And then since Mr. Martin brought in the PAPRs, to put that money in that line item and keep the 0621 as it is for other things such as breakdown of equipment, that as much as you think nothing breaks down, it breaks down.
So am I understanding correctly if I say it like this? You would hope to see this committee approve in budget line 0621 the amount of 3,648 that currently shows there.
Correct.
But in budget line 0836, instead of 0 for purchasing medical/dental equipment, you would like that to be $5,000 to cover the cot and the suggestion that Mr. Martin made. Is that correct?
I would like that to be $8,300, which would be the $500 that Mr. Martin suggested, along with the $3,300 of the cot. Because 5,000 are two PAPRs, each are $2,500. So one for Dr. Denton and one for his assistant, whomever that is. Those are each $2,500 per PAPR, meaning 2, equaling 5,000. And then the Furnace cot would be $3,300. So if you add those up, it would be $8,300.
All right, so the budget line 0621 remains as currently shown in our budget document, 3648. But
Correct.
budget line 0836, the amendment then would be, and I think I saw a couple of hands waving for a second. Member Schaefer has moved that we change the 0 to 8,300. That has been moved and I believe seconded by Member Wendt. I think I saw Member Martin's hand wave too, but I'll give it to Mr. Wendt this time. Do we have a common understanding within members of the committee of what the amendment is? All right. That's been moved and seconded. Member Soldner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to ask for the administration to comment on what kind of impact this $8,300 or whatever this will be. I realize it's not a big number in the big scheme of things, but I would like her perspective on the impact of the budget.
Thank you, if I may, Chairman Gordon.
Absolutely.
So the impact would be really the $5,000 because Coroner Yoder is requesting movement of some of those expenses already projected for 2021 from one line item to another. I don't think the impact will be significant. I think we can work with the coroner on this, and staff in the background here are also reminding me that we should also consult with the Cures Act, not CARES, but Cures. I think we should put this in the budget, but we will also do our due diligence to examine that type of medical equipment purchase with Cures, because of course we are looking at completing some purchases of PPE, but we had not thought of this type of PAPR equipment under Cures, and we'll make that we'll do that due diligence to assess that. So I think this should be a proper purchase for Dr. Denton and his staff on behalf of Coroner Yoder, and we will work to incorporate it, but we'll also try to get it reimbursed if we can.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And Member Solder, thank you for raising that question to Administrator Rodriguez, because if you didn't or if nobody else did, I was going to too. Obviously, the budget impact is a question that we wanted answered, and I thank you for that. Is there any other discussion, questions, comments, or discussion with regard to Member Schaefer's amendment? Hearing none, I believe we're ready to vote. The chair will vote. Ms. Morlock, would you call the roll?
And this is the motion to amend that we're voting on.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Member Went,
Yes.
Member Schaefer,
Yes.
Member Martin,
Yes.
Member Soldner,
Yes.
Member Chairman Gordon.
Yes. Is there any other discussion now on the overall budget of the Office of the Coroner? If not, I believe we're ready to vote. The chair will vote. Ms. Morlock, would you call the roll?
Member Went,
Yes.
Member Schaefer,
Yes.
Member Martin,
Yes.
Member Soldner,
Yes.
Chairman Gordon.
Yes. Thank you, Coroner Yoder.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night.
You too. Glad you were with us this afternoon.
Uh-huh.
Ms. Rodriguez, would you introduce the budget for the Office of the State's Attorney?
I will do, and I will also group all of the portions of this section G together, even the subsets in G1 and G2. So I move forward item 4A G, which is request approval of fiscal year 2021 recommended budget for the general fund 001, State's Attorney Department 0020, including under G1, the general fund 0001, prosecution and litigation program 0019, and administrative support program 0020, and under G2, the IDPA 4D project fund 0156, child support program 0079, all of this found on pages 46 through 52 of your packet.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the budget for the Office of the State's Attorney? Moved by Member Solder. Is there a second? Seconded by Member Martin. Mr. Knapp, welcome to the Justice Committee special meeting. Glad you're here. Do
Thank you,
have
Mr.
information?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I provided a PowerPoint for our IT department that I suspect they're loading. There it is. So without having control of it, I'll just say, next slide, if you will. You'll see that what I did is I put together more of a historical path of where our budget was and where it's come to, because there's just so little room or so little movement in our budget from year to year. I'll get into a couple of the line items in a bit, but if you look at it, I want to remind everybody that all we're talking about is a portion, the vast majority of the state's attorney's office budget. We also have a small portion in the tort fund that funds the civil division, or part of the civil division. That's not an issue tonight. The Justice Committee has oversight, as Administrator Rodriguez said, to the sub-departments 19, 20, and 79. Online, our oldest budget book is 2009. So just from my perspective, I thought you guys might find it interesting. I went back and pulled some of those numbers. If we could go to the next slide. I've already touched on that. All we're going to talk about tonight is prosecution and litigation, which everybody understands is the prosecutors on the criminal division, the administrative support sub-department, and child support 4D. Let's go to the next slide. So this next slide is pretty busy, but what you'll see from it, and I summarize this afterwards, so I won't go in, I won't really highlight this, but you'll see where I pulled the numbers from in our expense lines from both 2009 and 2021, the 500 lines, and then the 599 line, 600 lines, and 700 lines. Just if you start with prosecution and litigation, you'll see that in 12 years, the request is going to be about $140,000 more in pure salary. but the 599 line that the department has nothing to do with setting jumps up about $140,000. Let's go to the next slide, which summarizes this slide that we're currently on. In 2009, the total expenditures for the state's attorney's office in these three departments were $2,915,000. Today, the budget we're recommending with the administrator's office is $3,029,000. Difference of $113 or 3.9% increase from 2009 to 2021. I think that more than suggests that my predecessors and hopefully myself and our oversight committees have been pretty diligent in watching the expenditures of the state's attorney's office. Let's go to the next slide. If you compare FTE counts, they change a little bit. They were much, well, I shouldn't say much higher. They were higher in 2009. We're at our lowest FTE count that we've been in years in this recommended budget. One of the things that has remained consistent, just for comparison purposes, is we've always had two ASA 5s, a civil division chief and a criminal division chief. I thought you'd find it interesting that in 2009, their budgeted salaries were $197,000, and this year their budgeted salaries were $196,000. Then based on the 1% and 1% increase worked into the budget that Administrator Rodriguez talked about in her budget address, that goes to $200,000 for the ASA 5s in 2021. So we're about 1.63% higher than we were in 2009 for those positions. Let's jump down to the next slide. Since we're talking about salaries, I thought you'd find it interesting that, as you know, the vast majority of our budget is salaries in the state's attorney's office. 2009 total budget, 88.2% were salaries and benefits. This year it jumps up to 94.3%. So it's a reduction, even though the raw numbers aren't going up very much. The percentage of salaries versus supplies, commodities and services that are contained within the budget are just higher. And so much of that, again, is driven by benefit costs. Let's go down one more slide to the next slide. So that's the good news. Over 12 years, the budget has really only grown 3.9% or 0.325% per year. That's the good news. And but look at, and there's line revenue significantly down almost $100,000. We will come in about $100,000 for 2020 below what was budgeted. So much of that is the CTAA, which after Circuit Clerk Everhart's presentation 2 weeks ago, and what you talked with Will Scanlon, you are undoubtedly as well versed in the CTAA as anybody. Also, we have lost, the appellate prosecutor's office is not funding a $28,000 grant that it had normally funded. That has gone away. We're not going to get that. And COVID's effect on our deferred prosecution. We had, if you see the deferred prosecution revenue lines, we were actually in 2019, we had revamped some of the deferred prosecution protocols. Had a retirement, and Amy Witt came into the position of deferred prosecution coordinator and has done a fantastic job of mining our internal files to look for people that we can divert out of the formal criminal justice system into deferred prosecution. You'll notice that actually in 2019 we beat budget projections by, we were budgeted at 46.8 and we came in at 53.3. So we were up 7,000 or 8,000 in that line. We've taken a huge hit. That is going to be down for 2020. Many of the deferred prosecution cases are retail theft cases, especially first-time retail people caught for retail theft, and stores were simply closed for 3 or 4 months, and still have limits of the number of people who can come in them. So that's some of the bad news for the 2020 actuals, and what we budgeted in 2021, you will see will be down. Now, to offset that a little bit, and this is, let's go to the next slide, our 2020 salary line and our 2020 expenditures are also going to be significantly down. Year-to-date expenditures and salary projections indicate salary expenses will more than offset that $100,000 reduction in revenues for 2020. Those come from vacancies pending as in ASAs or even support staff for periods of time, and then new employees coming in at lower steps than the old employees left. So next slide, please. The 2020 adopted budget had salaries for the prosecution and litigation section at 2.1 million. You'll notice on your sheet, and then I actually ran, if you look at the actuals on the sheet that was in the packet that was ran, it looks like on September 18th, I ran an updated sheet, and the actuals on 10/5 were at 1.5 million, which was a projection of 1.8 million. So on 10/5, we were projected to be about $300,000 below budgeted salaries. I worked with Kathy Dreyer over the last couple of weeks to hone that in a little bit better, and we think it's very accurate to say we'll come in about $145,000 below the adopted budget in our actual salaries. So that's a little bit of a historical perspective of where we were and where we are. Again, let's go to the final slide. To recap, we're requesting 3.029 million for these three departments. 94.3% of that are salaries and salary expenses. 2020 expenses were budgeted at $3,010,000, so we're asking for a 0.63% increase. If you want to go line by line, I'm more than happy to go line by line through the budget. You will see that the vast majority of budget lines are decreased by the 4% or more than the 4%. And with that, I'll take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Are there questions for the state's attorney from members of the committee?
Perfect.
Not quite. I have a grand total of two questions.
Perfect, George. What can I
One
answer
is
for?
more substantive than the other.
Okay.
In budget line 0706.
Which sub-department? Prosecution and litigation, George, or?
Yeah, this is prosecution and litigation, Don, yes.
Okay, which one now?
Budget line, it's contract services.
Okay.
In 2019, we didn't spend anything. In 2020, it's been 20,000, and nothing was requested for next year. And
Yes, if you remember right, we brought Tammy Wagner in, the current, Tammy's a longtime prosecutor. We moved money from my salary line. We were quite honestly having difficulty filling prosecutor positions. Some of it dealt with the bar exam got pushed back. Some of it was just the market. In before COVID, in early 2020, the market was great. The job market was great. And so we were fortunate enough to be able to offer Tammy Wagner a contract. And all we did was we moved some salary, some traditional salary into a contractual line. And that contract now, she is actually in the last month of that contract. And next month, that contract comes off the books. A new ASA comes on the books as an ASA 1. So that is why there was nothing. We moved some money there, and now we don't have anything there next year either.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You bet.
My only other question is why the cost of grand jury donuts is going up by a third.
And that's exactly right. That's exactly what that is for. That's for the grand jury. I think that's increased from about $900 to $1,000. The good people at Grove Street Bakery is usually where we buy things. Sometimes the grand jurors are only here 3 or 4 hours. Sometimes they're here through lunch. So we bring them donuts. I supply the coffee, and we give them donuts and coffee, and they've just raised their prices a little bit, and that's understandable. So that's exactly what that line is used for, George.
Well, you did have that addendum noted right below that budget line.
Oh, did I? Okay.
Okay, Member Schaefer.
Yeah, in the appellate prosecutor salary reimbursement, when you said the comment is due to legalization of cannabis, the state has eliminated funding. Can you explain why what the connection is there? as to
So
why they would do that with
many-
cannabis?
Many years ago, that well before I was in the state attorney's office, that grant was meant to offset some of a drug prosecutor's salary. And so now that is my estimation. In 2019, we go to the appellate prosecutor, or the state's attorney's conference, and we had hoped in discussions with the State's Attorneys Association that grant was going to be funded. It was never funded. And then we were told in late 2019 or early 2020, I don't remember, that it's not going to be funded again. And that is our speculation. When I say our, my colleagues and I, that with the legalization of marijuana, the state, the General Assembly, through the appellate prosecutor's office, is just not going to fund that anymore. So that's what we've been led to believe. We'd have to call Springfield to know for sure why any grant goes away. But again, that was always used to offset not every county got that. People with dedicated drug units and drug prosecutors receive that grant, and that's just not coming through anymore.
Thank you. Other questions for the state's attorney at this time?
Let me piggyback on that a little bit, Susan, that and I think Mr. Soldner asked me last month, or maybe the first part of this month, if we've seen what we've seen with the legalization of cannabis. Certainly some of the old cannabis charges that we've seen have gone away. We still see a number of cannabis trafficking cases, but the amount of meth that keeps our drug unit busy is troublesome. It's been in the paper over the last, we had a 2-day period where cases that we're actively working resulted in more than 2 kilos of meth seizures here in Central Illinois. So there is an amazing amount of meth running around, not just our community, but others here, that have kept our drug unit is as busy as it has been in a long time. So.
Sorry to hear that, but thank you for sharing that information with us.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that's the case. Other questions now for Mr. Knapp at this time? If not, I believe we're ready to proceed to a vote. The chair will vote. Ms. Morlock, would you call the roll?
Member Wendt,
Yes.
Member Schaefer,
Yes.
Member Martin,
Yes.
Member Soldner,
Yes.
Chairman Gordon.
Yes. That concludes the action items that were to be brought before the committee this afternoon. Ms. Rodriguez, do you have any other items for information?
I do not, Chairman.
All right, thank you. Any other business and communication to come before the committee at this time? Hearing none, we have no bills to pay other than budget items that we have all already acted on and moved forward. With no other business to come before the committee, I'll declare the meeting adjourned with my thanks to everyone. Thank you very much. Members of the board.